Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. I thought that we would just finish up my last video of the year with a home workout, and I'm going to try and make it really accessible for beginners. So I'm going to talk you through everything, and we're going to do kind of like 12 reps of everything as well. So it's going to be 12 days of Christmas home workout, full body too, almost full body. I haven't done a home workout in ages because I have to admit that I am a girly who loves hitting the weight room. So I thought this would be a nice challenge for me, and I've just written down a few exercises that I always prescribe to my clients, and so I thought we'd have fun, just get the body moving a little bit and hopefully feeling good as well. I have tailored what I'm talking about today mostly for beginners, but if you're not a beginner, you can always do this workout, add a few weights, add some extra reps or an extra set, or maybe even do it for time. With all that said, let's get into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is spend about 5 minutes warming up. So I've just chosen a few dynamic exercises or a few dynamic stretches that I thought that we could all do. Again, this is really up to your level and what you want to do. I might not be able to stretch as far as you can, or you might not be able to stretch as far as I can. I'm going to give you some modifications for everything. Let's get into it. So the first one we're going to do is the world's greatest stretch. It is actually called this in the research. So yeah, I was surprised too, to be honest. I'll show you what it is and then I'll talk you through it. You're going to come into a lunge position. It's up to you whether or not you have your knee on the ground. It just deepens the stretch a little bit more. You're going to put your hand next to your foot. Then you're going to put the inside hand on the ground. That'll help you get up. You're then going to bring your elbow down towards your foot, and then you should feel a nice big stretch along your glute. Once you're in that position, or you've got a little bit of a stretch, we're just going to add some thoracic rotation there. So thoracic is the upper spine there. That just helps keeping it mobile and helps us get nice and warmed up across all planes of motion. I'm gonna go into the other side now. You could do 5 to 6 on each side. You might wanna do some extra on one side, just depending on how tight you feel in each stretch. Again, up to you whether you want to have your knee on the ground or having it up. If you're having it up, you want to try and keep that full front foot on the ground, stop you from rotating too far out. So you want to keep it nice and planted. The next thing I'm going for is a bit of a hip mobility exercise, because if you've watched this channel, you know that I have some pretty stiff hips. So I'm going to be half kneeling. If this is too painful on your knees, you can put a pillow underneath. And again, just adjusting the range of motion depending on what feels comfortable for you. So I'm half kneeling. I'm going to bring this other foot up. I'm going to be at about a 45-degree angle. And then I just do a few pumps there. You can do whatever you want with your upper body. Once I've done 3, I'm going to come out directly to the side, and then that really deepens the stretch along my adductors or my inner thighs. So I'm just getting the body moving there. You could do around 3 rounds on each side, and again, if this hurts your knee, feel free to put a pillow or something underneath it. Sometimes it's just nice to get your body moving, you know? I really, for a long time, was pretty adamantly against home workouts just because I love lifting weights, but I know that that's not really accessible for everybody, so I just wanted to start putting some content on this challenge where if you were just a beginner starting off, because I know the gym can be scary, just some workouts that you could do by yourself at home and with not a lot of space. You can see probably in the corner, I've got like my couch right there at the table. Nice. Once that feeling all loose, I'm gonna warm up my upper body. I'm gonna be doing some teacups. It's actually warm today. I've already got a bit of a sweat on. Nothing to do with the candles behind me. Please don't work out with candles behind you, I swear. This is purely for the aesthetic of the film. So we're gonna start off by doing some teacups. Teacups, imagine you're a little teapot. You can put a little weight in your palm. This is a shoulder mobility exercise. And if it's painful, we're gonna adjust it, okay? So you're gonna reach forward. This is a bit complex. And you're coming around behind you, forward again, and then around back to your teacup position. You can bend as much as you need to. Forward, around, because we're borrowing the range of motion from our whole body. And this is just getting those shoulders really warmed up because we're putting them through all ranges of motion. We're getting some internal rotation, external rotation here, flexion, and extension. Beautiful. Now we're going to do the other side. Do I have enough space? Barely. You can see on this side I bend a little bit more because my left shoulder is a bit stiffer than my right. Now with the workout today, I've really just chosen the exercises that I feel like doing. If there's an exercise that I mentioned today that you find really hard, the good rule of thumb is to do the harder things first, because we're gonna be freshest and that's gonna help us get better at them. On that note, let's start with push-ups. So with the push-ups, I know everybody's favorite, but they are focusing on our chest, okay? So there's a few main things that I want to focus on with a push-up. I'm just going to show you 1 rep. I'm just going to do it on my knees. There's no need to do it on your feet if you can't, or if you don't want to. Sometimes it's nicer to get a lighter workout in. Let me show you. So with the push-up, a couple of things that I'm looking for. Number one, we want to keep our body in a nice flat line. That means that there's going to be even weight going through our arms. We're not overloading our arms. And the second thing, which kind of is an extension of this first one, is that you don't want your hips up in the air. So we're going to bring our hips flat down, so my weight is primarily over my hands. From here, we're going to lower ourselves down and back up. You might see some people online saying that you can't take your hands wide and you can't turn your elbows out, but that's not true. If you don't have any existing shoulder or elbow pain, then it's completely fine for you to turn your hands out as much as you want. If you do have shoulder pain, if you have your elbow in line with your shoulder, that can sometimes cause an impingy feeling. So you might want to tuck your elbows in a little bit. So you might see some people doing push-ups online that look like this. Neither is right or wrong. If you have your elbows nice and narrow, it's going to be a little bit more tricep work because you're putting your tricep through a bigger range of motion than if you were out to the side. They don't bend as much, right? So they don't have as much extension to do. So for the first part of our workout, let's get into it. We're gonna do 12 reps of push-ups. I'm just gonna do them on my knees. I'm gonna take it nice and slow. Let's go for it. If you feel like you've been struggling with your push-ups for a while and you want them to become a little bit easier, or you feel like you can do one, but there's no way you could do 12 on your toes, then the way that we can train that is by doing a drop set. So that means you would do one repetition on your toes, and then you would do the rest of the reps or the rest of your set on your knees. That way you're still getting some exposure to that heavier load or more taxing progression of the exercise, but you're also allowing yourself to get the volume and build up the muscle. So hopefully that'll help you become stronger as well. Whew. We're then going to take 60 seconds of rest roughly. Now, if 12 reps on your knees is too tough, that's when you can put your hips up higher. So instead of being in that flat position, you would come into that more tabletop-like position. You're then going to lower down from there. It's going to be much easier because there's much less load on your hands because most of the weight is back over your knees. That is one regression. Another way that you can make push-ups a little bit easier is if you start by doing them on an incline. I actually have to get my breath back. I'm not used to talking as I'm doing exercise. So you can either do your push-ups leaning against a wall or maybe even leaning against a table. You still want that nice flat body position though, and you still want to be aiming to reach a depth of 90 degrees at that elbow or lower. But 90 degrees, that means we've hit a repetition. Once you've had about 30 to 60 seconds of rest, I'm going to let you get into rounds 2 and round 3. We're going to be doing 3 rounds of 12 reps for each exercise today. A second alternative to progressing your push-up is to do eccentrics. Now, eccentric means the muscle is lengthening. So in a push-up, this is when we're going on the way down, our chest muscles are lengthening. To use this progression, or to use this way of progressing, you would lower yourself down really slowly on your toes. That way you're getting a lot of eccentric load through your chest muscles, and then you could get up however you want. Collapse down. So really slowly on the way down, and then just push yourself back up and try again. If you're going to use an eccentric way of training, I would probably recommend you do 3 to 5 reps because it's pretty taxing. See if you can get around 3 to 5 seconds per lowering portion. And if you can push yourself up, fabulous. The second exercise in today's workout is a hamstring curl. Now, if you remember, we're going to do 3 rounds of 12 for these, and we're going to need a chair or a bench or something that we can dig our heels down onto. So I'm going to go grab that now. So perfect. I've got my chair just here. This exercise is going to be working on the back of our legs, and it is an awesome exercise no matter what level you're at. We're aiming for 3 rounds of 12, but if this is too easy, I'm going to give you a progression, and if it's too hard, I'll give you a regression. That is the dynamic hamstring curl. It is a killer for the back of our legs, and it helps us to strengthen our hamstrings. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up your legs so that they're at a right angle. So as you saw, my knees were placed on the bench, and I have a right angle just here, or kind of a right angle. I'm then going to pull my toes towards me as much as I possibly can, and then I'm going to dig my heels down as hard as possible. With this, my hamstrings are already turning on. They're already contracting even though I haven't moved. So digging down as hard as I can. I'm then going to add one more motion where I'm pulling the bench towards me the whole time. My hamstrings already are burning. I did these yesterday, which is probably not a great idea. So digging down as hard as you can, pulling the bench towards you. From there, and from that place of squeezing, that's when you're going to lift yourself up as high as feels comfortable and bring yourself back down. Now the progression for this this is to take one leg off and to do a single limb dynamic hamstring curl. The same principles apply. We're digging that heel down and we're pulling that bench towards you as much as possible. Ooh, they burn. You might find that the chair tries to move away, and what that generally means is that you're not digging down towards you enough. We're gonna give that a go. You're gonna aim for 3 rounds of 12 if you're doing double leg, and if that's still really hard, then we're just gonna move the chair away and we're gonna do some glute bridges. So just staple glute bridges up and down, squeezing my bum and bringing it back down. You can do the same thing on your heels, pulling towards you if you want to try and build up towards that dynamic hamstring curl. If that exercise is too easy for you, that's when you're going to do single limb exercises. I also thought now would just be a good time to talk to you guys and to remind us all that bodies fold and they squish and they move when we work out, and that is completely normal. Nothing to be ashamed of at all. How incredible that our bodies allow us to do these movements in the first place. I think that's pretty fantastic. Once you've done 3 rounds of 12 of those, we're going to move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a bird dog. Now, a bird dog is one of those really old fundamental movements for core stability, particularly if you have lower back pain. There's other things that we can do for core strength, which I've got another video explaining all of that about. But if you're just starting off at the gym and you're trying to learn about your body, then there's definitely a place for this exercise. So in this exercise, you're going to put your opposite arm and leg, and they're going to imagine they're pushing something forward in front of you, or they're pushing the wall away behind you. You're then going to bring them back into the middle and then extend them again. We're going to aim for 12 reps on each side. If this is painful on your knees, you can put a pillow underneath it, but it will make it a little bit harder for you to balance, so be aware of that. Maybe folding up the edge of your yoga mat is a better way to kind of soften that impact on your knees. There's a few things that I want to focus on in this movement. Number 1, we're taking our time. We have a saying in strength and conditioning that speed hides need. If you see people rushing through an exercise, it generally means that they don't have the strength or the ability to do it slowly. So we want to take our time. I don't want to see anybody breaking it down or dancing and moving really quickly. Take your time. The second thing is that you want to make sure you're starting with your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. Take them quite wide, and this will give you a nice base of support so that you're not wobbling side to side. If I'm too narrow, that's so much harder to balance than if I have a wide base of support. Again, moving with intention, and I want you to notice my back when I do the exercises. Take a look and tell me what you see. Any thoughts? Hopefully you don't see much, because what we want from this movement is we want a nice flat or neutral spine, and then we want to keep it there the whole time. And that's the challenging part of this movement. If I was bouncing, it's not illustrating the same level of control, right? And because this movement is aimed at increasing our core stability, we want to give our core a chance to do its job and hold everything in place. Let's see how I go on the other side. I'm trying to keep my hips facing the ground, and I'm trying to be really impactful and purposeful with my movements. So there might be a little bit of wiggling, and that's okay. You can even try doing this exercise with a book on your back if you want, and that gives you some direct feedback to hold your body in place. If that bird dog is too challenging, then what you can do is just your arm or just your leg. Same principles apply. We're aiming for stillness and purposeful movements. So you can play around with it there, still aiming for 12 each side, but if you feel like after 6 you've got a really good burn and you're getting what you want to out of it, then that's all that matters. The next exercise we've got is a split squat. So I'm gonna have to bend down for this one, guys, but a split squat is kind of like a lunge. It wouldn't be a home workout if I didn't have to cram into one space. So that is a split squat. There's a few things I want you to focus on. Number 1, I don't want your legs to be in line, so not one straight in front of the other. You want to give yourself space. Imagine you're on train tracks. That's aimed at increasing that base of support and giving you a bit more stability for the exercise. You may have heard online that people are saying not to let your knee pass your toes, but that again is a bit of a myth. If you don't feel any pain in your knee as you're doing the exercise, then there is no reason that your knee cannot go past your toe. If you have knee issues, then that's when you might want to consider decreasing that range of motion and maybe just stopping your knee before it goes into that uncomfortable territory. But if there's no pain, then there's no reason for you not to do certain movements. No movement is inherently going to hurt you. Another thing to consider when we're talking about our knee and how it moves down, when you're doing your split squat or any lunge pattern, you want your knee to come roughly in line with the second toe. If you feel like your knee is caving in too much or going out too far, then you're going to try and keep the weight in the middle of your foot, okay? So not letting it roll out to one side, keeping it pretty firmly in the middle. So when I lunge down, this will look like this for me. There might be a little bit of movement there, but I'm pretty strong in that position, so it's okay for me. If that exercise doesn't feel good for you, you can substitute it out for a step up or something like that. Same general principles apply. Give yourself plenty of space so that you've got better balance. Keep your weight generally in the middle of your foot and then push up off that front foot. You can make this exercise harder by adding weights, or you can make it harder by elevating your front foot or your back foot. Then the exercise will turn into something called a Bulgarian split squat, or even just a deficit split squat. So go ahead and we're going to do 3 rounds of 12 reps on each side. Take about 60 seconds rest in between each round. I forgot to mention, with your hands, it's really up to you where you want them to be. They can be out for balance, they can be on your hips, across your chest. There's no wrong answer. And now we're done with the split squats. We're going to move on to the last exercise of today, and it is an inverse of the bird dogs that we did. We're going to be doing a dead bug to finish up. So that is a dead bug, and it is again a core exercise. It's one of my favorites. There's a few ways that we can adjust the dead bug, but the first thing I want to talk about is how we do it. Our back and our abdominal muscles. Our core's main role is to reduce movement. It's to keep things nice and still, to help us brace. So because of that, when we're doing this exercise, you're going to aim to keep your back nice and still. You might notice when you're doing it that your back wants to arch or wiggle down as you move your legs up and down, and your job is to try and keep it in that one position. If you're not used to feeling how your body moves during exercises, what you can do is you can try putting your hand or a book maybe underneath your lower back. If the pressure comes up off your hand or the book when you're moving your leg down, then that means you're getting that rocking motion, okay? So we've got to try and keep a constant pressure on whatever is underneath our back. I'll show you what I mean by this. So I'm lying down, see how my back is arched? I'm bringing it back into a neutral position, putting my hands underneath here so I can feel the pressure. And then going to try and keep that pressure, really constant as I move my legs up and down. Another regression for the dead bugs is if you just move your hands backwards or if you just move your legs. You don't have to do them at the same time. That way, it kind of minimizes that challenge on your coordination, and it also takes some of the load off. So it means you can put your hands down to balance, or you can put your legs down to balance. That helps us to focus on keeping our core nice and tight. Another regression is simply to just reduce the range of motion. So that might look like just tapping my heels on the ground rather than fully extending my leg or my arm. I might just tap to here. Reducing the range of motion still gives you the opportunity to test out your core throughout this movement, but it also takes some of the load off, because sometimes people can complain of back pain when they're doing this movement, and that generally means that we're moving too much in places that we don't want to be. So those are some regressions that you could do. As a progression, or to make it harder, you could either hold a weight above you, you could hold a band above you, or you could do more reps and more sets. But for now, we're going to start with 3 rounds of 12 reps on each side, and I'll let you guys get into that now. And wow, that was a lot of talking. So if you made it through this, thank you guys for sticking with me. This is kind of just like a beginner's guide to home workout, and hopefully giving you some useful cues if you're working out at home and you just need a fresh perspective on things. I know the gym can be a scary place, so don't force yourself to go if you're not ready. Take all the time in the world that you need to become confident in your body, how it moves, and then when you're ready, the gym will be there and you'll be able to kick ass. As this is my last video for the year, guys, I hope you have the most amazing holiday period. I'm thinking of you all, and I will see you next year. Stay strong, guys, and be kind to yourselves. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're new here, guys, because I'm trying my best to help people become strong on the inside and the out. Bye, everyone.